Welcome, everyone. Folks are filing in. Welcome to the new student orientation session. Welcome, welcome. All right, welcome, everyone. Good day. Today's webinar is on new student orientation and Jesuit higher education, where we hope that we will look at student formation practices. Oh my God, there you go. What is happening here? Okay. All right, I think I'm back. That was a little bit of a glitch here. We're gonna stop sharing my screen, see if that can get us back. Yeah, I see you. You're moving around, so I think everybody's here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Yeah,
hear you, Andy.
great. All right. We're going to work on some of the technical difficulties here, but again, I'm Andy Wilson. I'm the Vice President for Student Success at Loyola Chicago. I'm definitely not in information technology today, but I'm also the Vice President for Virtual Programming and Engagement with the Jesuit Student Success Network. And I'll be your moderator today for this program. We also have several programs this semester or this spring and winter. Our next program will be on February 20th. It will feature our colleagues from Boston College, Loyola University Marymount, and Seattle University unpacking first generation student support in Jesuit education. Uh, so we'll make sure that uh, we see a link later in our discussion today, and we'll make sure that we get you registered for that. In March, we're going to look at hot topics in career services with our colleagues from Santa Clara, Loyola Chicago, and the University of San Francisco. In April, we'll look into financial well-being initiatives at Jesuit institutions with our colleagues from Loyola New Orleans and Rockhurst. And then we're going to round out our spring lineup with using data and assessment in Jesuit higher education with our colleagues from Canisius, Gonzaga, and Creighton. So I'm having some computer issues and I'm in some kind of death spiral, it looks like, with this sharing screen option. So I
have to say I'm encouraged that I'm not the only one that still has issues with using Zoom and sharing screens and things like that. It's good to know that sometimes you feel like you're on your own on that 5 years later, right? But it's good to know that I'm not the only one. We know Andy will be back.
Yeah, we have Andy. He's going to be reconnected here.
Okay.
Should we go ahead and introduce ourselves while we wait for Andy?
That's great because we know
Yeah,
that's
I think
first.
so.
So
Um, Catherine, why don't you go first and then I'll follow you.
Hey, sure. Well, hi everyone. It's great to share this space with you. My name is Catherine Wade, and I'm an advising dean in the College of Arts and Sciences at Georgetown University. At the College of Arts and Sciences is the largest of the four undergraduate schools, and we typically enroll around 860 new students each year. This number does not include sophomore transfers, and we usually welcome about 100 transfer students each fall. Aya and I, Dr. Youssef, and I are responsible for the leadership of the new student orientation activities for the Dean's Office specifically. And Aya will talk a little bit about our role. But just briefly, I wanted to share the university's general approach to onboarding. So, new student orientation is managed by Student Affairs at Georgetown, the Division of Student Affairs. And specifically, there's a director of orientation, transition, and family engagement. And we onboard students twice a year, once in January, a smaller group. Those are transfer students who are joining as sophomores, sometimes juniors as well. And the largest onboarding takes place with our new incoming class each summer and some fall sophomore transfers who are beginning in August. And Student Affairs typically starts communicating with students months in advance of their beginning at Georgetown with a weekly newsletter. And then the big orientation experience, which we call NSO or New Student Orientation, takes place in August. It's a 5-day experience that starts with move in and it ends the day before the first day of classes. Each day of the NSO experience has some welcome and social activities to support students, making connections, getting to know campus. And each of the other days have their own focuses as well. The third day is typically focused on introducing students to key resources and partners on campus, such as wellness and mental health resources. These resources are introduced by their orientation advisor. So each student has a guide, a current student on campus who serves as their orientation advisor, and they meet in small groups. And the peer-to-peer aspect of this is something we find really important and valuable. Our orientation in the fall also always includes a Jesuit values presentation, which is usually on that second day as well. And then the third day is a day that is more focused on academics. The overall goals of our NSO include promoting the awareness of Jesuit values and the academic expectations within the Georgetown community, helping students and families understand and navigate the variety of academic opportunities at Georgetown, and facilitating the establishment of meaningful relationships and connections at Georgetown. Overall, just trying to get students and families feel prepared for life as a Georgetown student.
Thanks, Catherine. Hi, everyone. My name is Aya Youssef, and I also, like Catherine, work as an advising dean at Georgetown in the College of Arts and Sciences. I've been in this role for 6.5 years, but I also teach in the English department. So I have the pleasure of coming at these topics of academic advising and student onboarding from both a staff and faculty position. As Catherine explained, there is a university-wide orientation program that all schools at Georgetown participate in, including the College of Arts and Sciences. But the Dean's Office in the College of Arts and Sciences also is in charge of its own programs. So these include a welcome webinar for new students and their families that includes the dean of the college and in which we give an overview of our advising philosophy and structure. We also host a move-in break for students and families as they arrive to campus. This is more an informal event where students and families have the opportunity to meet the dean and advising deans in person. But our most major event is something that we call a Dean's Assembly. And this is toward the end of new student orientation, just as students are approaching the start of the semester. For these meetings, first-year advising deans meet with their own advisees and provide a more detailed academic orientation to the college. Happy to be here and look forward to talking more about our approach to orientation.
Go next. Nick Cubita here, Director of Orientation Programs at Seattle University, he, him, his pronouns. I'm also an alum of Loyola Maryland, shout out, and Seattle University, so double Jesuit alum. Um, we're currently on the quarter system and we're very thankfully getting the semester system soon, but with that we do orientation for every term. And so as with others, our summer fall incoming cohort is the largest. We have many shared goals that Catherine and I have shared as well, which is great. So I won't go too in depth about those because we cover a lot of what you did as well. In the summer, we just brought back our in-person summer orientation 2 summers ago, which we had before the pandemic. And so that's been really exciting. And it was a way to build that from the ground up and kind of innovate with it. And so we offer both 2-day overnight programs for students as well as 1 day, because we know that's really helpful and flexible for our students and their families with taking off work. And then we also have a mostly traditional fall welcome program. It's about 4 full days. And then once classes start, we trickle into the first week of classes as well. And so, yeah, I think I'll stick with that for now. And I'm going to pick Beth to go next.
Great, thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. Coming to you from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Welcome from St. Joe's University. Beth Hagowski. I am the Director of Student Leadership and Activities here. We're going to sound like we're repeating ourselves. So I also will not go into great detail because we all have very similar orientation structures. St. Joe's, hopefully for those of you who do know or might not know as much about us, school of about 5,500 undergraduates, give or take numbers. And then we have 3 campuses. The 2 are here in the Philadelphia area, and 1 is in Lancaster, which is focused mostly around nursing. We've gone through a couple mergers in the last couple of years. Lots of fun. I recommend it if you can do one. And we do our orientation programming in the biggest part of orientation programming is at the end of June every summer. We do 4 2-day sessions and largely a class of 1,350 to 1,400 is usually what's been coming in for the last couple of years and tends to be our goal. And then we do a weekend in August when they move in, largely a social-based program. We began a new program this year. Office of Student Success began a great program called Hawk Ready, which really was trying to give them the skills that they need to get through the first couple of days, weeks of the school year, which I thought was a great new addition to what we offer for our students to get them prepared. We do work, we have transfer programs as well. That is also run out of the Office of Student Success. Those are offered each semester, 1 in August, 1 we just did one last Friday in January for our transfer populations, which fluctuates, could be 30 to 40, could be 80 to 90. It just depends every semester. The program in the summer is an overnight program. Families are part of the program on the first day, usually see anywhere from 350 to 400 folks come for families. And like I said, we have about a 1,400 person incoming class. Usually we have about 85% of the class will actually attend an orientation session in June. Most of our students are from about a 2-hour radius here at St. Joe's. So it's relatively easy for folks to be able to come to the overnight program. If you come to the program, you are staying overnight. I mean, we do have some students that will leave after the end of the first day, but the vast majority of them will stay. And what I will say, and happy to talk about this more as we continue this conversation today, I think probably very similar to many of your programs, but our program here is resource rich, but a lot of fun. We focus on the fun and breaking down anxiety for our students, helping them to understand that St. Joe's is a place that they can call home. And that's a big part of our goal. And we do that while also infusing resource information into the program. So yeah, I think I'll end with that for now. I'm gonna come back to more conversation later. I think Chris, you're up.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks, everyone. Hi, good afternoon from 50 degrees in Boston at Boston College. I'm Chris Darcy. I serve in the Office of First Year Experience at Boston College. Our office is responsible for our university orientation. And I say university orientation similar to all of my colleagues, the entire university is involved. So it's certainly not our office and our division. Our division is responsible for orientation. Our division is the Division of University Mission and Ministry. I've just started my 30th year at BC. About 3+ years involved with our orientation program, and it's been really amazing for us as a university community. I'm not going to go into too much detail because a lot of my colleagues have covered it. We usually onboard a class of anywhere from 2,425 students to 2,465, probably closer to 2,440 or to 2,450. Our orientation program is June, July, and August. So what we do is we do 7 sessions. Similarly to my colleagues, it's 2 tracks. It's a track for students and a track for family members. We average probably 310 to 405 students on each session. They can bring up to 2 family members. So that is any parent, guardian, whoever it might be. We've had students that have brought neighbors, and that is absolutely wonderful and fine with us. So on average, we're looking at probably anywhere from 850 to almost 1,100 on campus for our orientation session, which is 3 days. It starts on a Sunday afternoon, finishes on a Tuesday afternoon. We start with liturgy at St. Ignatius of Loyola Parish. Our program, similar structure, weaving in the principles of formative education, the intellectual, social, and spiritual, really, from everything from the work with the 40 orientation leaders that we have, all juniors and seniors, to certainly our professional staff and to our colleagues across the university. We're responsible for not only the traditional first year class, probably anywhere from 183 to about 205 transfer students, and also our Messina College, which is a new college that we opened up 2 years ago, 2-year program. And that college, we usually have about 104 to 105 students, and we're responsible for their orientation as well, too. Plus, we're responsible for the January orientation, which we just finished last Thursday and Friday with our deans and our faculty and administrators. And we had about 31 students coming in. A little bit different for us with the NCA policy changes and what they call the portal. So our numbers were down a little bit. So that's a little bit about who we are, and looking forward to the conversation today, everyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your patience. I have to say it's very nerve-wracking to be moderating something and then get kicked out of your system and not able to get back in. So thank you all for driving the proverbial car here. And it is very reassuring when you hop back on a webinar that you're moderating that the group has self-governed and is moving along. So thank you for taking the initiative and for such really helpful context from your introductions. Because we're talking to our colleagues and with our colleagues who are at other Jesuit institutions, we wanted to start off this program by thinking about mission integration and how do we help students understand the connection between our Jesuit mission and their personal academic journey. How do we use different Jesuit practices? What kinds of traditions? Helping them as they are in the earliest phases of student formation to connect to that Jesuit mission. So I'm going to ask Chris to kind of kick us off in kind of how you're helping students understand that connection between the Jesuit mission and their academic journey.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andy. Probably similar to all my colleagues, we spend about 3+ weeks with an orientation process and a formation process for our orientation leaders. We're right in the heart of our recruitment of those orientation leaders right now. I think it really starts there, but even beyond that, I think it starts with our preparation, and that's really going at and assessing the program from the scale and vantage point of the families and students that attended last year and the students that we interact with this year as well too. And again, I think like any good initiative that is university based, you're only as good as the changes and the adjustments that you make make, based upon what your stakeholders tell you and your students, especially your colleagues. So I think for us, we start with the training, and that training is a university-based training as well. The Jesuit community is involved in that, as well as the provost's office, as well as all of our schools, our academic deans, a number of faculty members, but then a number of our key stakeholders in university mission and ministry, as well as student affairs, as well as auxiliary services. So what we try to do is ground the orientation leaders into a more granular understanding of those key stakeholders, those resources that are here on campus, those companions on the journey with our students. So I think that's what we try to start with. From that point on, as I mentioned earlier, the focus of our orientation program over the 3 days really primarily is making sure that they are welcomed. We start off with a mass, as I mentioned, and we welcome everyone. And I really enjoy the fact that our Jesuit community, all of our presiders, will start the Mass with that welcome. And Father Casey Beaumaire, who's our Vice President of University Mission and Ministry, gets up and says, hey, it doesn't matter what your faith tradition is, all are welcome into this space. We're so happy you're here. You should be here. And I think for all of us, that's so critically important, because those are questions that our colleagues in admission get all the time. So I think starting there helps us quite a bit. And we really structure a lot of the program from that formative way. We're looking at certainly the intellectual. They spend time with academic advising and course registration. We spend time on the social element in the breakout with small groups. And then certainly the spiritual element is kind of weaving in those specific identities of that Jesuit Catholic aspect of Boston College. And so for us, that's very helpful. And a lot of that comes from training. One of the things I think that's critically important for us as well, too, friends, is that we have a number of individuals here at the university that have been involved in our program. And I think because a lot of them have history here at Boston College, some attended the university, got master's or doctoral degrees here too, they are even more committed and more invested in what we do. And that's one of the things that we've tried to adjust a little bit in making it more of a university orientation. I think getting to the heart of that identity of formative education and student formation for us really tracks back to Ignatius. And a lot of the conversations we have between building in the reflection groups, we do an exam in a short way with our orientation leaders, along with our students, some of the different presentations we bring in, we really try to ask our presenters and the people that are spending time, especially our senior leaders who give an opening keynote on the Sunday evening following our opening, to talk a little bit about why formative education is so critically important. In fact, what we've done is over the last probably 7 to 8 years, we've shown a video called The Power of a Jesuit Education, which we all can certainly talk about. But the senior leaders get at the heart of what Ignatius and his early companions were all about. And those early companions were about, hey, understanding what we're being called to do, understanding that self-care, that self-love, and that identity within oneself, to ultimately go out and model that in a way to minister and educate and to serve others. So it starts with the power and the influence and really the meaningful aspect of that video. And then that transcends into conversation with usually our university provost, with our university vice president for student affairs, our university vice president for mission and ministry, and others to talk to the families and students about that. So I think for us, getting at it and starting at the mission and identity really starts in that first day or so, but it really goes back to the training and if we're doing it effectively and with purpose and meaning. And then I think the last part of it is when we close out, what we try to remember to do is to tell our students, hey, we challenge them to look at where they've come from, the companions on their journey, where they got here. We share a little bit of the cannonball moment with St. Ignatius, and during St. Ignatius's transformation, so to speak, and his rehabilitation, how he felt called in a different way. And what we try to do is challenge them, saying, you're being called in a different way. You're not leaving behind those coaches, those teachers, those counselors, those friends. You're adding new companions, starting with orientation leaders, with resident assistants, with academic advisors and faculty. So we try to leave them with that too, so they have something to look forward to when they come back and meet with their academic advisors and their residence hall directors and RAs. So that's a little bit about what we try to put into our preparation and then our kickoff when we start our orientation program.
Yeah, I think it's so important to start with the training, right? Like to reinforce, these are students, your orientation leaders have been through this orientation before, right? And so to make sure that you are reiterating with them the connection between the Jesuit mission and their BC experience, and then that kind of it's a what do they call it? It's a culture accelerant. It really does help you accelerate what you're hoping the newest members of the community will see in the community that you want them to see. I'm interested in others, how is there anyone who wants to chime in on the connection between mission and students' personal academic journey?
I can start. So I agree that I think the training is really important, but then so is making sure that you continue that kind of training and introduction even after orientation. And so at Georgetown, we have a great example of how we do that. As part of our core curriculum, we require students to take a 1 credit class here called Race, Power, and Justice at Georgetown, which is in part an extension of a session that's introduced to them during orientation. So the session at orientation, which is required, gives an overview of Georgetown's history, especially as it relates to the history of slavery at our institution. So students are then also required to take this 1 credit class in their first year, which centers upon Jesuit history and teaching, especially its focus on faith that does justice and being people for others, and the ways in which we have sometimes not always lived up to those ideals. So, it was clear that a single session during orientation was not enough to address this topic, which Georgetown considers crucial to its mission and the Jesuit mission overall. And so, there was this push to create this 1 credit class that would be required of all students.
And Aya, who is teaching that 1 credit class?
So it's taught by a number of faculty and advising deans at Georgetown. So I've actually taught the class, and so is my colleague Catherine. But it's essentially open to any faculty member at Georgetown. So we have professors from across our departments teaching the class.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I think the connections between, new student orientation and the early course sequence, regardless of if it's a, freshman seminar of a topic, other than, your transition or the connection, there is something about making sure that we are stacking, experiences. The inoculation approach of orientation, I think is not been effective. It is with vaccines, but it's not with kind of the orientation. So yeah, thank you. I want to move on to the social transitions piece. So we've talked a little bit about mission and the sense of belonging, especially with most of the institutions that are represented here today are serving students from diverse backgrounds who the institution maybe wasn't built for, and so making sure that students are finding that sense of belonging. And Beth, you mentioned in your introduction about the fun and the social pieces. So I'm going to ask you to kind of weigh in first on this social transitions piece. No pressure on the fun part.
Well, the fun is usually not the pressure part. It's the easy part, right?
Okay.
Although
Yeah.
not always. It's sometimes a challenge to create fun, but it does sort of come naturally to our students, I think. Yeah, and I'm sure that all of our programs are actually similarly based with some of the fun. We are all seeking to have our students feel a sense of connection as early as possible to our institutions. And so obviously we're doing that as quickly and early as possible throughout the admissions cycle. So we really, we've been lucky at St. Joe's, and I'm hoping you all have been at your institutions as well, to be able to continue to ground important learning and messaging that we want to make sure our students and our families are hearing in our Jesuit values, especially through the last year or two when there's been a lot of changes in the culture and society. And so we've always maintained a strong partnership with our Center for Inclusion and Diversity, and have been able to introduce a couple of different programs over the years. We've really landed now in the last few years on one that is identity based, because we recognize that all students want to come and feel a sense of connection. And so we need to do that at a relatively low entry point for I think all people, because you don't know where everyone's coming from. Yet we all have identity, right? We all have a sense of identity. We all have a story to share. Some of us haven't known how to really unpack that or how to process that as much, but that's, I think, where the learning can begin. And we try to do that right away in the June orientation program. We have a great program that is that our campus ministry and our Center for Inclusion and Diversity partner on together. So it's grounded in Jesuit values, but also explores identities on different levels, and starts to create some language around making sure that everyone at our university community believes that we are all welcome. We are all part of a community together that is here for a common goal and a common good. And I think that it's, like I said, it's a low entry sort of session, but I think it really is approachable to all of our students. And so I think that that's worked really well. And I think that it's something that we, not only do our student leaders, our orientation leaders actually really love this session and look forward to, but I think it hits well with our incoming class as well. So that's something that's really gone well for us. And I think in a way of being able to make sure that all of our populations feel welcome when they get here from, 9 a.m. on that first morning. The session is the second session that we do with them. So we try to make sure that everyone is kind of feeling that early on. We do a session specifically for our commuter population, because our commuter population continues to grow here at St. Joe's. When I first got here almost 20 years ago, maybe it was 20 or 30 a class. And I think recently we're up to closer to 140, 150 a class, which is great. There's lots of different reasons why, but we need to adjust for that. And so we have always, for a long time, we've had a special session for our commuters during the June program. We've maintained that. We have a session for our families as well as for the students separately, but that they have a chance to kind of meet and interact together so that they start to understand that they will build a community themselves as well. We want them to feel integrated to the entire campus, but that we also want to make sure that they feel like they have their own connections and community that is something special for them. So we try to do that for some of our other, for the populations that have some additional issues that we want to address. For the whole population, like I said earlier, we are very much a fun program. From the moment they kind of get here, our leaders are focusing on breaking down that awkwardness. I call them all the time, as I'm sure many of you do. They're the awkward busters, right? That's what our leaders are meant to do in so many ways, creating a safe space, creating a comfortable environment, but really just breaking through some of that awkward for both our families and our students, incoming students. And so they're doing that from the minute those families walk on campus at 7:30 in the morning, all the way through to the next day. And we bring them into the city. We take them on public transit. We get them on a SEPTA train and we take them down to the city, and they go to Reading Terminal Market. They run the Rocky Steps. We just try to integrate them so that they're feeling a sense of connection to Philadelphia, to St. Joe's, to each other. We wrap up the 2-day program with a round of field games because we break them into color groups so that and it's amazing the sense of connection one can have around cherry red, like just a random color, yet somehow by the end of the second day, they've all come up with chants and they're diehard cherry red people. So I think that happens organically. It doesn't start that way at 7:30 in the morning on the first day, but it is, as I'm sure you all experience, so enjoyable to watch every session when you see these students make that transition in a 36-hour window. It's quite remarkable. And so we really do focus a lot on making sure that our students have a sense of social connection before they leave here on their second day, so that they have something very much that they're looking forward to coming back to in August. And then we do a lot of follow-up over the course of the summer, not only just with the leaders, but then our advising centers are doing that, and different offices are doing that. They literally, when they leave us after orientation, about a week later, they'll select their rooms, they'll register for their classes all online. So we keep that sense of connection all summer long, as I'm sure many of you do. So for us, it's about making sure that that all of our students feel connected and feel a sense of belonging before they leave here after the second day, and that they've really have had fun. Like really, I sound so simple to say that, but that's really at the heart of what we're trying to get at in our orientation program.
It's so interesting. I mean, because there's so much happening emotionally for these students and their families as they're coming in. This is a a dream realized to go to college and going into a new community where there's a lot. We're not very good in higher education of showing a bright light on all of the hidden curriculum. And so to know other people who can help you navigate that, I think is a really smart tactic. And to guise it as fun, right? Like, there's real learning happening there, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it is fun. It's fun to learn, hopefully, right?
And it's approachable, right?
Yeah.
I think it's an approachable kind of, you can kind of find your entry point there, right? Regardless of who you might be. So
kind of choose your own adventure.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Are there others that want to kind of chime in on the social of it all before we move on to the academic of it all? Well, I think that, having been to a couple of NOTAs and the rah-rah nature of orientation, I think is really well grounded in the tradition of coming to a university. And I think that social piece, is just so important. And they feel, I like what you said, Beth, they leave that second day. It's just 2 days, right? See how much you can do to have someone feel like this is their place and that you're glad they're there and that they know that they belong there. The fact that you can do that in 48 hours is really quite. And I think this is at many of our institutions. This isn't just at St. Joe's, of course.
I was just going to say quickly too to Beth's point and Andy to what you said too. Probably like all of us, we usually end our first full day Monday night with scenes or skits on campus life. But what we've learned is on the Monday afternoon beforehand, we really kind of center a lot of it on identity, and so you're trying to kind of get some messaging out, but at the same time really turn people inward to kind of reflect on where they are coming in. But then we let go a little bit on Monday night. So Beth, I will tell you, there is a lot of fun, especially when COVID hits your team and then all of a sudden the professional staff is involved or acting in the scenes themselves, including my first summer. So I can vouch for the fun part, not only with the students or families, but with the staff as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, the budding thespians that you see in the skits is really kind of fun. Let's move to the academic transitions because I think this is the one where I think about an orientation program, supporting that academic readiness without overwhelming or scaring, right? Like, there's been a lot probably built up about being college ready and, are you going to make it? Like we have turned a corner in higher ed in that we want the students who we've admitted and who are coming to make it, right? Like this is all about student success, not about student attrition. So, how does your program support that academic readiness without being overwhelming? Aya, you want to help us, understand what's going on at Georgetown from your vantage point?
Sure. Yeah, no, this is, I agree. It's such an important question. So like I noted earlier, Georgetown hosts a Dean's Assembly, which is when a first year advisor meets with their new students as a group before the semester starts. And this isn't the first time that information related to the first semester and year is shared with students. We do have a Canvas course that is shared with students over the summer that is designed to be an introduction to that. But this is the first time we are meeting with all of our new advisees face to face right before the semester begins. So of course, this can be a high stress time for students. So we try to be very strategic in the information we highlight during this assembly, focusing mostly on the start of the semester. We also have peer advisors present during this meeting so that new students have a chance to speak with a current student at Georgetown. But we try to make these meetings less about delivering content, like detailed content, so that a student doesn't feel like they have to absorb everything that they need to know in the hour or two that we meet with them, and more about helping students understand where they can go when they have questions, where they can find those answers. So we really try to strike a balance between encouraging autonomy, student autonomy, and then also reassurance that there are resources available when they need them. So, for instance, we prepare a detailed printed brochure that includes important information that they can read through as many times as they need to. And we also stress the importance of making an appointment with their advisor when they start to have questions they can't answer for themselves. So our Dean's Assembly really has two goals. It's to make sure that students have the information they need to have a successful start to the semester with really just a focus on that first semester and year, and then a chance to do some relationship building. We really do think that slowing down and focusing on relationship building are crucial to do at the start of a student's college career. So we try to emphasize that they do not need to have everything figured out or feel like they need to understand everything right at the beginning, and that they can trust us, their advisors, to deliver the information that they need when they need it. We also try to use this meeting to begin introducing students to the practice of reflection, which of course is grounded in Jesuit, and other practices to help students begin to focus on making meaning out of their college career. So thinking about their own unique goals and values and how they can identify academic experiences to help meet them. In terms of soliciting feedback from students, the university does share a post orientation survey with students that, among other things, asks for feedback about the Dean's Assembly and other academic events during orientation. So that data is shared with us after every orientation, and it's helpful because it helps us know what is working, and then, of course, what might need some improvement.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear about the feedback loop there, right? I mean, and the particularly because the relationship piece is built in, right? Like you've done a very good job of, kind of focusing them on the now. It's very easy to come in and want to plan out your whole life,
Right.
right? Even your whole college life doesn't allow, I like a good plan, right? But as we learned from technology today, we plan, God laughs, right? So, the idea that that can be overwhelming, and so to put it in a manageable, kind of fun size framing for them with a time perspective, I think is really well done. Um, are there other, academic transitions go right into the heart of orientation, and I'm wondering if there are others who want to kind of weigh in to add to the conversation.
I mean, I can add briefly.
Please.
That's really, I really appreciate what you said, because I think for us it's the same way. What we try to do, working with our academic advising center through our Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, it impacts all the other schools, but also highlighting to families and to students, take advantage of our faculty, develop a relationship with a faculty member early on. The academic advisor, great, but go to office hours. And the orientation leaders, we put a panel together for the families. And we try to really get them to highlight that, because it's really been purposeful and it's it made a difference for them and their pathway and their journey so far. But the other thing we try to do is help with that transition, that handoff, because during our weeks of welcome, right after the first years move in, right after our last orientation session, we have a very similar day, with meeting with the here from academic deans and hearing from their and meeting with their academic advisors. So that relationship, getting it off to such a quick start and an effective one, is critical. So I really like what you're all doing, because we try to mirror that as well too, and it's really helps with that transition into that first week. And they realize again that they're not by themselves on the journey. There are faculty, there are so many people here with them, especially on that academic journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, and, kind of even taking it back to the mission integration piece of this conversation, the accompaniment, and, understanding who your companions are and who can accompany you, and how do you form those relationships as you're entering into a new community. For many of our students, this is their first time really, kind of journeying into a space, as more of uh, an independent learner. And so, finding others who they have things in common, whether it's through their identity or through their academic passion or, some combination of those, I think is really important to lift up. Our last piece of our framework for the conversation today is around innovation and technology, and kind of, what do we see as, technology shaping orientation in Jesuit higher education in particular. There's, a really, as we're sitting on Zoom, I think a lot of, kind of the COVID pandemic circumstances, quickly taught us some ways to reimagine, and then what have we learned from that? But I'm really interested in kind of the virtual, the hybrid, like how are you looking at that, knowing that, the companionship components and what students and their families are looking for from an experience. So Nick, not just because you're in Seattle, which has a long history of, tech gurus, but what are your thoughts on how we see technology shaping orientation in the Jesuit context?
I think it's about leaning in, and a lot of what we focused. We have I'll probably reference this a lot. We have the Slate CRM system. We call it Slate for Success, or just the Success CRM on campus, which I'm very grateful our campus has invested with. It actually started, our admissions team had it, and now we have the student success version for orientation and ongoing with students as continuing students. And so, I mean, for us, that's been such a game changer. We have a full orientation portal interface built out in Slate that to us it's Slate internally, back end, all of that. To them, it's just the orientation portal. It's a centralized place. All of their new student checklist tasks are in there. There's about 8 million small integrations for everything from health forms to advising tasks to event RSVPs to, I always joke that the meningitis form is my favorite because it's the easiest task. You just read it, check your box, put your initials, and so we try to help them understand that checklist is interactive. It's easy to go through. There's a lot they can just go in independently. And we try to very much put things in a lot of like plain language and almost over communicate, over explain things so that students can do that independently and understand. Because if we just throw a form at you, it's like, what's the purpose of this form? So we try to start with, hey, like, here's why we're asking you to do this. And a lot of it is thinking about user experience, which I am like no expert on. I have no computer science background or that many tech skills other than my Slate training, but really thinking, students live in user experience. We all do, but they were born into it, right? And so how are we leveraging that and thinking about, when we're building our portal and sending our communications, I pull in some of my orientation leaders or senior OLs, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's everything from make that a drop down or add a shadow box to this so it looks cooler, to like, no, like we need that to be like only 2 clicks instead of 3 clicks. And so not just because we're in Seattle, but it often feels like, I'm doing an Amazon or Google type function often where we're thinking of that, but that's how students are living, right? And so we've built a lot of that out over the past 2 years in particular. And we've had some great colleagues that do that with us. One of the biggest benefits with Slate too is like email is not new anymore, but how we use email communications, we can really leverage. And so we've mapped out a really robust strategic communications plan with students. We probably last year sent over 100 unique messages, and that is a mix of general announcements, reminders for folks, things that are really like, hey, here's some checklist items like you still need to work on, those kinds of things, as well as like messages from key campus leaders or key areas. Our Mosaic Center, which is our student inclusion center, we do a welcome message just from them. We do one from University Ministry as well. And so really trying to like plan that out, leverage that out. And one thing we do that I think helps with that is we copy our family contacts on all of those messages. I think almost every single message a student gets, we copy their parent, supporter, family contacts on. We find that extremely helpful. Our student population is about almost 40% first gen. And so we find that bringing families along, both as other folks might know, gives the leverage to light a little fire of like, hey, you need to sign up for your advising appointment. That's really critical. And so sometimes we'll email family members separately of like, hey, like, there's this really big task coming up. Can you chat with your student about it? But otherwise, we know that keeping them involved as much as possible. Similarly, when they come on campus, we do a family track program for them as well. That really brings them along, and everyone's living in their inbox. Whether we like to believe it or not, whether we actually like it or not, but that's where things are. And we also find it sounds a little Pavlovian, but conditioning folks to read your email from the university regularly, knowing that like we try to play a big role in that as much as possible. But other than that, in terms of virtual offerings and experiences, we have phased away. Like I said, we brought back our in-person orientation 2 summers ago, and so as we've been doing that, we've been phasing out how much virtual we are offering. In terms of virtual social events, attendance significantly started declining. I would say summer 23, summer 24, where some folks still have that need and that want, but there's a lot there's a lot more yearning for the in-person. And so we're able to balance that out where we take our orientation curriculum and move some of those pieces to in-person sessions where we know that that is more effective. But our student financial services team, every 3 to 4 weeks, they're still hosting an info session. Especially, we time that at the beginning of when they're admitted. We launched their orientation portal April 1st for our incoming fall cohort. We make sure that we have one of those in June and July. We have one in August right after the bill goes out. Those are some of our most popular sessions. And having done that, those in our student employment ones as well, having hosting those in the Slate system helps us to track attendance. So every year after we get through fall, I can look back and say like, hey, here were our most popular sessions. That's what we're going to move forward, and do some of that kind of loose assessment of that as well. But something else that we've used is the guidebook app, which I have had the best customer service experience with them. This is not a paid endorsement, but like if you can do it, do it. And I find their pricing to be really effective and fair, actually. And so that is particularly helpful because we say that it's always orientation in your hand when you need it. And so we have the schedules uploaded a minimum 48 hours before they arrive to campus, and try to get stuff in there. We have our QR codes for everyone to scan it, and we get everyone in there. So that has been a huge game changer. And Seattle, we have a lot of sustainability goals, so we're printing so much less. So I know we're getting close on time, so I'll kind of leave it there so we can shift a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. You covered a lot of ground there. I will say, and Michael put into the Q&A, question about apps, but we are going to move. I'm going to ask the panelists to continue to comment on innovation and technology for a second. But if you have questions, we're going to save the last few minutes for some question and answer. So go ahead and put those, like Michael Pideaux did, into the Q&A feature, and I'm particularly curious about kind of the innovation and technology piece. So I want to kind of circle back to that. And in some earlier meetings there, you heard that there's some things happening at Georgetown. You kind of mentioned the Canvas piece, but Catherine, you want to weigh in on kind of what's happening in your mind as you're thinking about technology and innovation?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Sandy. Aya mentioned our Canvas course. We transitioned, it was in 2021, from sort of a mailer to all students over the summer with registration information to a Canvas course. And we've been iterating this course each year. We don't use the course to communicate with our new students. We don't use the announcements. It really is a place for them to go to learn about how to register for classes. What we love about it is that a lot of things come to life. We have, videos in the course, peer-to-peer videos where students are, walking our new students through the registration process, how to read their degree audit. We also used Qualtrics to take what was a static flow chart and make it into sort of an interactive tool that students can go through to understand what is the best language course for them to register for. So this has been our biggest sort of, I would say, use of technology as the Canvas course. We've also embraced Zoom, of course, because over the summer, we have a lot of work to do in our office with advising new students. They register before they come to campus, so they register in July. And so, we meet with them regularly on Zoom. But the Canvas course has been really helpful, and we continue to iterate. I think we're also learning a little bit about the limitations as well, because just in looking at the data, at some of the videos, we learned that, of the 800 students who are in this course, who are using the course, maybe 400 of them will watch a video to its end. So it's really interesting to kind of continue to think about what are the most useful ways to lean into technology to communicate information to our new students. But overall, we think it's been really helpful because it's giving us more time to actually focus on the personal connection piece and meeting with our students and getting to know them. And again, relationship building, because some of this information, that is pretty standard related to registration, they can learn about in the course. And it's designed, they can hop around it, they can go through it in order. So it's something we're proud of. We've been working on it, over the years, and we do think it's been sort of a big step forward for us, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, I really do think that students respond well to information that has been curated and thoughtfully sequenced in a format that allows them to, really do it as they need to, but also when they're ready, right? So the asynchronous pieces to the orientation is a relatively new experience, right? And it is, I think a Canvas course or, even the webinars over a summer or, things that, really when you get in person, we're kind of embracing the flipped classroom approach with orientation. It seems like more and more, really trying to make sure that those large group gatherings have a lot of social connections to them and a lot of reason for being in person, right? Like these are things that, we want you to be in discussion. So I think there's a lot of, kind of cross functional pieces to what we've talked about today. And I want to say, if there are questions, we are getting to the kind of the end of our time here, but I don't see any questions in the chat, and I'm loath to mess with my technology. It seems very fragile right now, so I'm not going to look too deeply. But I want to say a hearty thank you to our panelists. The gift of your time and your expertise and the examples that you have given, I think are incredibly helpful in a practical sense. I also know that I've kind of listened along, and I hear so much about the university orientation, right? So while you're representing a particular institution, it's so much more than those who are coordinating the events that you're most closely associated with. So I want to lift up your partnerships on campus and how important that is to creating that seamless experience for students. Our next webinar is February 24th. Thank you, Jeremy Daly, who is our behind the scenes producer. Today, he dropped a link in for you to register for that. It's February 24th at 2 p.m. Central Time. And it falls during the Jesuit Student Success Network's Student Success Week, and it's also the week of Trio Day, so which in part is focused on first generation students. So I'm really excited for that conversation as well. But again, especially during the beginning of a term, we were able to coerce orientation professionals onto a webinar. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for what you do for the Jesuit higher education community. I look forward to seeing our panelists, but also our participants in a future gathering. So have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.